Hello, this is Cristi, and today I have a great video tutorial for you in Camtasia. I would like to show you how you can make an animation with one of those maps that you show the progress or of a journey on the map, or a start to finish or a destination kind of thing animation on a map, and we'll make that look a bit 3D, and it will be animated like in the Indiana Jones movie or any other kind of movie where you show progress going on a map. And it's going to be nice. We don't need any special effects for this. We don't need any external programs. All we need is the map and a little bit of ingenuity in Camtasia, and I'm going to show you this is going to look so nice and realistic in this video. So stay tuned, and if you watch until the end, make sure you subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my tutorials. So let's go and do it. So now we have the map. So I've gone to OpenStreetMap and just taken a screenshot of a map. Of course, the larger the image, the quality of the map is, the better it is. So you may have to capture your map from Google Maps, or if it's a fictional map, you can draw that yourself and export it as an image. So that's all you need to bring into Camtasia from external sources is an image of a map. You're not going to draw the map in Camtasia, that's overkill. So I've imported this map in here. This is a map from OpenStreetMap. So I'm going to just add this to my timeline onto my canvas here. Just make sure that after you do that, you go and adjust your project settings, because when you add the first clip on the canvas or timeline in Camtasia, Camtasia automatically adjusts your product size, your screen size, to match that image. And this is not what we want, because I want my final video to be an HD movie. So I'm going to go to project settings here where the zoom details are, and go to project settings and just change the custom to HD like so. Apply that, leave it black for now, or you can change your time or your frame rate to maybe 60 frames for a more smooth animation. That is up to you. So this is the map. It's a corner of Europe here. So I'm going to actually just making this up. I'm going to show how you can go from London to Paris. So that's going to be like an air bridge or an arrow showing from starting from London to Paris. Yeah, this is the region. So you can see here, if I zoom in and or maybe scale this up, you see London here, Paris down here. So what I want to show is an animated arrow that goes from London to Paris across the Channel Canal here, and of course animated and everything else. But we want to make it look like in those animations where it's kind of 3D and the whole thing has like a shadow on it and a bit of a lens blur, all of that stuff. We're going to play with that. So let me show you how it's done. I've added the map to my canvas. One thing you need to make sure is that your map is larger than the canvas, obviously, but even much larger than that, to allow for all this 3D movement. Because if you're doing the animation on a flat map, it's very easy. The map is staying in one place. You show the arrow going from one to another point and you're done. You don't need to move the map. But what we will do in this is we will get close to the map and we will move the map in 3D space, and we will also kind of jump around, jump from London to Paris, and we will shift focus from those two locations. So that's why we need much more map image than the actual area we are concerned with. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can jump from London to Paris, two cities. So obviously that's going to be the final shot is going to have kind of the arrow pointing from two places. So let's see how we can do so. You notice here that this is my canvas and this is my map, right? So I have plenty of space around there to play with and kind of move this map around, okay? So the first thing we want to do is we want to create the arrow. So one tip here is that if you have any animations you want to do on this map and they need to stay in one place and go to another place, and the ends of the arrow must remain fixed in position, you need to make sure that you animate everything before you add the 3D movement, because the 3D movement is going to shift everything. And if stuff doesn't stay together, it's going to start moving around. So you don't want your arrow to kind of shift from the two locations you want to to display. So what we will do is we will not even animate anything on the map itself until we have animated the arrow we want, right? So let's create the arrow graphic like an air bridge between these two locations, and we need that to be animated. How can we do this? Well, we can't really do much with the annotations that we have available in Camtasia because they're very limited. I mean, if you go to annotations in Camtasia, you switch to arrows here, you have like a bunch of arrows. They are okay for straight lines, and they're okay for simple, you know, pointing to a place saying, look, pay attention to this thing, but they are not animated, and they can't be added in a sort of a curve or a custom shape, right? So look, if I add this arrow here, okay, yes, Paris to London, but that's pretty much everything I can do with this arrow here. There's nothing else I can do with it. It doesn't even have a drawing animation like it does with the sketch motion ones. Even if you go to the sketch motion ones here on the left, all of these shapes have a drawing animation. So if I draw this line here and play, you can see the line is being drawn, and I can change the draw time to make it longer or shorter, and now my drawing time is longer. But again, it's a simple straight line. You have this arrow here, again, equally useless. If I play this, it's just a simple arrow just showing from one point to another. I can change the draw time and the thickness, but that's pretty much everything I can do with this. So it's not good for my purposes. So that's why I'm going to delete these now. Okay, first of all, let's go on the timeline and switch this map here. And this is one important thing. How long do you want the animation to last? Specifically the animation of the arrow showing from one point to another. I think maybe 5 seconds, depending on what you need to show. So let's call it 10 seconds. Okay, I'm just going to go for 10 seconds. You can expand this later, but you know, just to have it from the start. So like 10 seconds or maybe 5 seconds, we will see. So now I have the map. It's already on the map there on the screen. Everything is looking good. I just want to see these two locations on screen at the same time to start with. So, of course, I said we're going to go from London to Paris. Let's draw this arrow. We will create a custom arrow. This is the first thing we will do. We will go to annotations, and I have shown this in a previous video about how to create different custom shapes in Camtasia from basic shapes. And this is exactly what we will do now. I'm going to go to annotations, and we will use a circle or ellipse. I'm going to go to switch to all of these shapes in here and draw this circle on the canvas here like that. Zoom in. I'm seeing both locations. If you need more room, just drag this down here. We don't need the timeline for now, apart from just scaling these things like that. So this is the first ellipse. I'm going to create two ellipses, and I'm going to combine them to create a nice sort of sharp and pointy arrow kind of thing bridge, okay? And this is going to be like so. I'm going to just move this to be as large as Paris to London. You can rotate it, that's fine. So make sure that the point here, this point here touches London like so. I'm going to show you why. And this one touches Paris like so. If I zoom in here, you know, if you need to rotate it a bit more accurately, you can use the arrow keys. Just go into the zoom, the rotation here on the Z axis. Click inside of Z and just use your arrow key to go up or down. So if I'm scaling this, I zoom out, just rotate like this. What I'm trying to show you is we want to unite these two cities like this. So this is the first ellipse, right? Let's leave it yellow for now. And let's create a copy of this now. So Control C, Control V in the same position. And on the timeline, let's put it on the same length. So both of them are the same place. Let's make the second one black. I'm going to show you why. So just make it black. Right now, the color doesn't matter for this one. So watch what happens. If I drag this second one to the left like so, you can see the remaining area, the yellow, that's kind of like a curvy arrow liney kind of thing. Okay, but I'm not happy with this now. I want to hold down the Control key and drag from the edges of the black ellipse like so. Notice how the ellipse becomes actually, this yellow part here is like a line bridge between these two cities. That is what I want. So how can we make that actually disappear, this black one, and just have the yellow one? Very easy. We go to the visual effects and just go to media matte and drag media matte onto the black ellipse, right? So just drag it here, and nothing much happened here because by default the media matte effect applies alpha. What we want is to see the area outside of it. So we go to properties down here and change to alpha invert. So there you go. Now I can click the orange ellipse and I'm going to change its color to red. So let's make a red arrow like this. There you go. So this is the line between the two cities. Don't worry if you don't get the shape right the first time. What you can do is go back to any one of these shapes and adjust the size. So you can pull it like this. So look, your shape is changing like that. Or if you want, you can click on the red one and resize that also. Just, make it as curvy as you like it to be. If you want more like that, you can drag the black one more like this and push it out a bit to make it more curvy. You see like that. So this controls how your shape is going to work. You can click the sides as well. So like this. I think I'm happy with this one, for example. So this is one arrow like this. Of course, it's not touching the two cities anymore, so that is fine. I can select both of them and just drag them around. They will keep the position relative to each other maybe, and just move them like this. So it's very important here to make the two edges just touch the cities. That is what we want to show, right? So if you still need to adjust it, just click on any individual one and just make it thinner like so. Yeah, I think I'm happy. I don't want to stretch this for too long. So this is my arrow pointing from London to Paris. Yeah, the animation isn't there yet. We will do the animation in a moment. So to make these things easier to manage, select both of these layers, not the map, and group, Control G. So now they are one single object. Right click on it just to stay organized and say rename group, and let's call it red arrow. I know it doesn't look like an arrow. I did not put an end to it like an arrowhead. You are free to do that, and the way to do that is just go to the annotations and choose one of these triangles. Just drag it here, rotate it in place, make it smaller if you need to. Feel free to zoom in. I know Camtasia is not a graphics design program, but that doesn't, prevent you from being a little bit creative with the graphics. Okay, make this red as well. Pick the color from there, and there you have it. You have an arrowhead. Make it thinner to make it more dynamic if you want. Feel free to rotate it. If you need precision rotation, I know the rotation handles in Camtasia are a bit fiddly and hard to get to. Just go in here into the Z-axis and just use the arrow keys to turn your object. Look, it's turning up or down until you're happy. So now make sure that this arrowhead also stretches for the entire duration. Select it again with the red arrow and Control G to group. Rename this new group now, again, red arrow, like that. So that is my red arrow in one single object. If I zoom out now, look, I can move this object around. I can rotate it. I can point this arrow anywhere I want. I can even change the size and all of these things. I'm going to undo this because I want it back in place. All right. So this is my arrow object. I probably could have gone better with the thickness, but you get the idea. So now this arrow is there. How am I going to animate this so that I show a little progress from London to Paris? I don't want to show the arrow just immediately. So I said I'm going to use about 10 seconds. Maybe I'm going to do less. Let's try this. So we're going to draw this arrow because the arrow I did doesn't actually have its own animation like those sketch motion ones in Camtasia, but I can create my own. And we will again use the media matte, and I'm going to draw the animation of the arrow from the start to the finish in a very smooth way. The way we will do this is using another you guessed it, another ellipse. Just drag this ellipse onto a new layer. It's best to move your playhead at the start, because then every new shape you add to the scene is going to be added at the playhead. So watch this. This is the another ellipse. So I'm going to make this very small. Control Shift and make it kind of small like this. And let's place this onto the starting point where it's London right there. The size doesn't really, you know, it just needs to be small. So what we want to do is we want to animate this sphere, this, not a sphere, it's an ellipse. We want to animate this ellipse so that it expands the size, and then that's going to be a mask and it's going to show me the arrow. Very simple procedure. And I tell you, the Media Mat, in my opinion, is one of the best features that they could have added to Camtasia. You can do so many things with it that you could not do before. Masking. And I'm hoping that TechSmith improves this masking facility of the Media Mat, because it is a very powerful thing. Right now you're limited to the shapes that you have. But anyway, let's animate this one. So I'm going to go to this shape, this circle that I just created, and I'm going to click somewhere around here and click, press Shift A. This is going to add a custom animation. Like I always say, just, you know, if you learn how to use the custom animation, you don't need any other pre-made animation. So at the end of this animation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just Control Shift and increase the size of this sphere and move it about here. If you need to check what's below, just use the opacity to move it down. Just make sure that at the end of the animation, this ellipse covers the entire surface of the arrow. So no part of the arrow should be outside of this circle, right? So make sure you put the opacity back up when you are done fixing. So let's watch what happens now. You see the animation covering the arrow. So one thing I don't like about this is that it is a bit too slow. So like I said, let's pull the animation back a little bit like that. So maybe make it a bit faster. So this is the arrow being covered with this circle. And again, like I said before, what we will do is to actually reveal the arrow, go to Visual Effects and go to Media Mat again and drag the Media Mat effect this time onto this animated shape, the yellow circle that I've done. There you go. The circle disappears and the alpha effect comes into effect, and then it shows you the arrow. So let's go to the start and see if the arrow is being drawn the way we hope. There we have it. The arrow is being drawn across the pond there, across the water, and appears at the final point. One other trick you could do this to make this really more realistic is to actually animate the arrowhead. Instead of having the arrowhead just at the end, animate the arrowhead so that it follows this shape, this line, and then it looks like the arrow is actually flying over the water. I'm not going to do that. It's quite easy to do, but I'm not going to do that because it would make this tutorial much longer. If you want that, let me know and I'll do a special video for that particular part. And there you go. So we have this animation of the arrow. It's being drawn very nice and smooth. So right now you might think, hey, I'm done with this. It's looking good. It's animating. It's showing what I want to show. That's fine. Let's call it a day. No. What I want is to be more special about this, not just call it a day. So let's see what can do to make this even more interesting and more appealing, right? Well, one of the first things I would like to do maybe is to add a little drop shadow to the arrow, right? So first of all, let me select this again, the shape that's covering the arrow and the arrow itself. Control G again to make them a single object. Because you will see I will like to make a copy of this. But before that, what I want to do is I want to show you how you might add a drop shadow. You could use the effect that's included in Camtasia. So you go to drop shadow here in the visual effects, and if you drag that to the object you have, you can see the drop shadow there slightly. You can change the direction, the distance, and the opacity, make it darker, and maybe the blur as well. So there you go, you have a drop shadow. What I don't like about this is that the origin and the final point are also raised up. So it's not a real 3D shadow. It's more like a copy of the arrow. So I don't like it because now even though my arrow starts and ends, you know, in Paris and London, the points, the shadow is off. It doesn't look like it's really starting there. So it's kind of messing the whole thing up. I don't like it. So I'm not going to use this shadow. I'm going to make my own. So the way to make my own shadow is really, I'm going to make a copy of this arrow. Select it, Control C, go to the start, and Control V. So let's rename the first one, which is at the top track. Rename the copy actually red arrow. Just leave it alone. Let's lock it just to be sure we're not touching it. Lock the track. And now this second one that is below it, let's rename that one. Let's call it arrow shadow. Okay, let's call it like that. Now this is the arrow shadow, so I want to move a little bit in there so I can see. Go to the end right now. So this is my red arrow that I'm seeing here, and I'm going to go inside the arrow shadow point, because look, if I move this, I have two copies now, right? What I want to do first is make that one black, right? So we go to the color here on the quick property. Let's pull that away a bit, and let's make this arrow black like so. So at least now I know which one is which. I can move that, and again, look, I've made a very sharp shadow, but that is not the shadow I want. What I want is a shadow that is bent a little less than this one, and it looks like it's on the ground kind of thing. So what do we do that? We actually need to modify the shape of the arrow itself. So this is one part where you need to be careful. Let's go and open the arrow shadow group. We don't want to mess with the animation because the shadow also needs to draw itself just like the other one. So look, it's now drawing. Both of them are appearing like that. So I want to keep that animation, you know, I don't want to touch that. So I'm not going to touch this group. I'm going to go inside of the, let's rename this one to just arrow, because that's the arrow I want to go in and edit. The group inside of it is also called red arrow because I kept renaming them. I'm going to rename this again arrow. This is the one with the mask. So I go in even more, and these are my two shapes of the intersection that I used to create the arrow in the first place. So watch this. If I want to make a change to the shape of the arrow, all I have to do is go here and modify the mask that I'm using and go to the second one. And let's see, if I pull that in, what happens there? That's bending it the wrong way. That is not good. Let's bend it this way down here. That is not good either. Let's play with the other one. Click on that, and like this, you know, I'm pulling the arrow here, or pull it from here to make it thinner. That doesn't really do what I want. So what I want to do is actually move this graphic that is creating the arrow, move it about here so that it intersects with the cities, the corners, and go to the other one and make it a bit smaller maybe. And what I want to do is, so you notice here I kind of got close to what I wanted, but it's going the wrong way. So I can actually take both of these objects and just rotate them around, rotate the whole thing. Control G, and now rotate the whole ensemble like this and bring it back down here. So that is one way to do this arrow. Scale it. So the trick here is to get the shadow to look a bit lying flat on the map, but not merge on the same direction as the other arrows, so that, you know, it looks like it's its own shadow. And at the end there, you might also want to adjust the arrowhead to match the ending point there. So if I go in here and I have this arrow go inside again after I've made that, and this is the triangle, and if you need to just get closer, zoom in and then just rotate that a little bit more to point in the same exact place as the other arrowhead. So at some point they will look like they need to be in the same position. That will give you the right effect that you want. So let's call it a day. I think this is better. If you want to do it, you can tweak it all you like and make it look like a nice real shadow on the ground. It's up to you how much you can do it, or you can just do that drop shadow I showed you initially, or you can just make a copy of this, scale it down, and move it sideways, so to speak. But I do like to have the starting and ending point in the same place. Maybe I'm not getting it perfectly right this time with the arrow. That is fine. You can just, keep tweaking this. Move it up or down until you're happy with the shape of the shadow. So finally, we want to turn the opacity of this map lower because it's too dark. I want to see some of the map underneath. It's just a shadow. It's not an actual copy of the arrow. So just click on the arrow shadow, go to the clip there, and just change the opacity down like this. So it looks even more realistic. So that's up to you how much you want to pull that down. I think I'm happy over here like this, just to suggest that there's a shadow there. And to add a little more effect, you can unlock the other arrow, click on it, and then go to the clip there and maybe change the color from this red. You can go inside and make it a gradient. So instead of having a flat red color, go inside of that and click on the red arrow, go inside as tight as you can on the red ellipse, and instead of a solid fill, do a gradient fill. So it looks lighter up at the top and darker at the bottom. Make sure you also go outside, click on the triangle, which is the arrowhead, because notice now it's a bit darker on the bottom there. So you change the color of that triangle to be the dark red at the close to the end there, so that it doesn't look like it's made from two pieces. So there we go. My arrow is right. It's finished. I like it. It's kind of, starting light red there, and it's turning. So it looks like the light is coming from the top left kind of thing. And also we have a nice drop shadow on the map itself. So let's see now. We should have not lost anything in the process. We should still have the animation working just fine. So there you go. If the light is kind of at the top there, then the arrow and the shadow are drawn at the same time. So that is pretty cool. If you want to call it a day here, that is fine. But what I want to do now is move on to the 3D part of this animation. So this is the final part where we will animate the whole thing. So this is why I told you, you want to animate the arrow first, because that's going to be a one graphic fixed in one location. It's not going to move, and it needs to stay on the map at the same point. So what we want to do now is select everything and make it one group, which we will animate. So how can we do this? Select everything, and notice that my graphic is outside of the screen. So what I want to do now is make sure that my both my cities are inside of the screen. Okay, unfortunately in Camtasia we don't have guides, so that we can put some guides and safe margins. But I just zoom out and I can see the canvas there, and everything seems to be in order. I'm going to group everything like this, Control and G. So right now we need to animate this. So how can we animate this? Well, we need to select the whole group and kind of shift the perspective, right? So when you group something, Camtasia creates a bit of a perspective 3D space. When you start moving it sideways, if you rotate along the Z-axis, it just rotates objects in the 2D space. But as soon as you kind of go around the X-axis and the Y rotation, then it's kind of tilting the object and creating a bit of a perspective thing. So this is what's happening here. If I go to the clip here with the group selected, everything is selected, and I go in here and look, if I shift the Z-axis, it makes this map 3D that way, right? Perspective. If I go along the Y-axis, it shifts it like this. So we want to create a combination of these two axes, and we want to maybe even use the Z-axis a little bit to adjust things. And we want to show the starting point of where London is, and the arrow starts to draw. And then we want to go with it all the way to Paris. But at the end, I want to see both cities on screen just like this here. first of all, go inside of the group and just make sure that we find out where the animation starts and ends. So it's about here, with the end is 7 seconds, and the start is about 1 second in. Okay, so if we go to the main timeline, we can click either marker here, and at the 7 seconds when the animation is done, click and add a marker here. So this is the portion of the timeline where we can create our overall animation. So what we will do is we will animate this group, right, with everything in it, including the arrow being drawn. So if I click on this, select the group, Shift and A to add a custom animation, and let's go stretch this one out there and go pull the back of the start of the animation right there just after the mark. We can just expand this later if we think it's too long or too short. So that is pretty much the whole animation where the arrow is being drawn. We don't necessarily have to be in that particular part of the timeline, but we want to keep it so that we know we can control what's happening and we don't come in too early, too late, whatever. So this is the starting point. Place your playhead there. Make sure the clip is selected. So this is the first part where we show London kind of in the front there. So I'm going to go to the clip there and just rotate the whole thing here and rotate it like maybe this. It's very horrible the way you have these rotation controls, and you can use the Z as well, you know. And right now what happens is I'm kind of just playing with this. I believe I may want to start from the top and just scale this up and just go in there. What I don't like is if you don't have enough map, and remember what I said at the beginning, you need to have enough map graphic outside of the region you want, because look, when you turn it around like this, you can see the edge of the map, which is not what we want. So we want to play with this perspective here to make sure that the map actually fills the whole screen all the time. Just go inside of these controls here, rotation controls, and just keep rotating until you're happy with the position. You can still see your canvas in there until you're happy with the position. Maybe even shift it up and down, and notice what happens. Like I said, once you start distorting an object along the Y and the X axes, Camtasia no longer treats it as a kind of a 2D object. You notice if I pull it to the left, it increases size on the left there, or it becomes smaller towards the right, because Camtasia creates this kind of perspective illusion. So make sure you move your object in, keep your canvas in sight, the whole canvas in sight, because this helps you position where the object is. And let's call it, let's see, this is not enough. I want to move this. So it's very easy to use the arrow. I wish they put some arrows here next to every one of these transform boxes. So let's start with London right this angle like that. Okay, let's call it like this. So the map is already kind of looking a bit 3D. You want to, you know, make sure you rotate it so just your map fills the whole screen. Don't have any corners, right? So this is the part where we start. Let's see what we have so far. If I move the animation, we can see that already London is kind of moving out and the arrow ends on Paris like so. So I'm going to move now to the end of my animation and tilt the map maybe the other way to bring both cities in view and show the arrow kind of nicely, as much space as I have available. So what I'm going to do is just click on the X-axis and just use the arrow key, shift. You can hold down the shift key and arrow inside of those boxes to change the value much faster. So if you hold down the shift key, look, it's changing much faster. If I just don't hold down the shift key, it's going slower. So this is one way to do this. And then I go to the Y-axis and let's tilt it a bit like that, and the Z-axis like so. Just make sure, bring both objects like this. So now play with the scale just to zoom in and fill the whole screen. So, and then if you need to, just shift it like that. So this is your final look. This is your final position. Feel free to adjust it, click inside of those fields and just, you know, you tilt it a little bit, or you want to stop until you've finished animating the arrow, and while it's still on the screen, you maybe want to create even more tilting, just to give it a motion all the time. Give it a motion. So let's suppose that I'm happy now. Let's see what we have so far. If I go here and play this, we see London and we see the arrow being drawn and the whole map shifts towards Paris. I do love it. So now, if your animation is not long enough and you are sure that the arrow is going to stay in screen, you can pull this animation and make it longer like this, and you can pull the start backwards. So let's see what happens now. I've expanded the animation, but the map with the arrow is still animating the same place. So look, the map starts moving before the arrow moves, then the arrow finishes what it's doing, it's getting to Paris, and then the map stops. So what I want to do here, maybe if you want, you can even shift, scale it up even more. So make it look like you're really getting close there, at the same time keeping the cities on the screen, or the points. So let's watch it again. This is it. It comes in, the arrow is being drawn, London to Paris, boom. And it keeps going for a second. That is great. I love it how it came out, and both locations stay on screen at the same time. So how can I make this even more realistic? Well, if you haven't stopped watching so far, let's have a go at doing even more realistic stuff. If you pull the playhead back and forth, you will notice that the arrow moves diagonally, right? So there's no change in direction for this arrow. If you're doing a more complex animation and you add this arrow multiple times, just to tell you, make sure you animate those arrows before you start doing this 3D stuff, because all this 3D nonsense, you're going to be having a very hard time getting the arrows to stay in place. So this is one thing. When I do all of these complex animations, I make sure that I animate everything in a static position in the flat view. Then when everything is moving and going to the right place, I group everything and then animate the group. So this is one way in Camtasia you can overlay animations, and the things kind of move in different directions at the same time, and it gives you a much nicer movement, much more interesting. So you notice here that we have the circle that reveals my arrow, and then the arrow is appearing on between the cities, and then the whole map moves with everything. That is because we have we've layered all of these animations one on top of another by just grouping. So if I want to be crazy right now, I could actually group this animation, create another group, and then take that group and animate that group, like maybe zoom in or do other stuff I want. Everything's going to be just relative to the inside of the group, because Camtasia creates a separate timeline and a separate canvas really inside of every group. So yeah, just so you know, if you want to make very complex. So let's do something interesting here. For example, I would like to maybe add a bit of motion, simulate a little bit of lens depth of field, right? So the way to do that, usually if you look at a camera depth of field kind of thing, objects that are not in focus, they get blurry, and stuff that's too close is blurry, and then only the subject or whatever you're focusing on is sharp. Everything else is blurry. So if you look at this animation here, you notice that the arrow moves diagonally. So what we have here is this corner on the left and this corner on the right. That is not something I'm interested in. I only care about these two places and the arrow between them. I don't care about the corners. So what we could do is we could create a bit of depth of field illusion there, and we will do that using an annotation in Camtasia. So again, I'm not importing any fancy stuff or using any special filters. All I do is go to annotations, go to the blur and highlight group, and there's your blur, which you can use in Camtasia to kind of hide private information and blur it and so on. But what I want to do this here is I want to use that as an illusion of depth of field. So first of all, I'm going to go at the start right here, right? So this is the point where I want to start, and I'm going to just draw this blur. I'm actually going to push it all the way through the entire animation like so. So let's see, it is here on the center by default, but what I want to do is I want to move this, turn it around, and stretch it like that, and make it go outside of the screen like this. So this is the first part of the blur effect. It is a little strong, so you can go to the blur and go here and turn the intensity down like this. So we will create a pseudo fade blur, right? So I'm making sure I'm not blurring the actual city I care about. And also then I'm going to make a copy of this, Control C, Control V, move it at the start, and just push it back a bit more like so. So the copy, I'm pushing the copy back. Okay, I am going to make another copy, Control C, Control V, push it again to the start and move it back even more. And this one actually, let me turn the intensity up. And on the second one too, just turn it up a bit. And this one, let's make it really strong like that. If you want this effect to be even more pronounced, you know, click on it again, Control C, Control V, push it to the start, and then push it back even more. You want to play with the intensity so that you don't make it look like you see the steps of the fading blur. So now look, in this part on this left side here, we have all these blurs happening, right? If you need to actually see more, just push this up, and you can press Alt and minus to make the tracks not so tall, you know, minimize the tracks. You can still see them, but you know, you can't really touch much of them. Just select them like this. So these are all my blurs on the left. I want to do the same thing on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control G to group, but don't be afraid. When you group blurs like this, Camtasia loses the blurs. What you want to do is put the blurs inside the group with everything else, but that is another story. So I'm going to put these blurs, copy, Control C, Control V on this group, and this time I'm going to turn this 180 degrees. So everything is moving on to the other side, and now I'm clicking on this second group and ungrouping it. So that is not done much. It's kept them in the same position. That is not a problem. Let's click and rotate 180 degrees like so. Wow, Camtasia is so buggy sometimes. Okay, I'm gonna have to rotate them manually like so. Okay, if that doesn't do it, then you can just move them manually. But there you go, we've done it. They are now blurred here, and I'm gonna ungroup the initial group there like so. So you can see now my scene has become very complex. You know, make sure you save this, but look at this visual effect here. You've got the blurs on the corners faded, you know, different stages of blur, which gives you that depth of field effect. So the other thing you may want to see is if these blurs need to move with the scene. Right now we have created this diagonal and my arrow is diagonally moving, so I don't think I will have to change this. But let's have a look. So I'm playing now the animation, the map stays out of focus, and the arrow just gets drawn. The only thing I don't like is now the left blurs are covering London, which I don't really like. So the left blurs are the first 4 down here. You can actually animate these if you want. So you can go here, and at the end of your animation, Shift and A adds an animation to all 4 of them. Select these animations and pull them all back down to where you started, like so. So I don't actually want to change the start of these because at the beginning they are positioned correctly. What I want to do is I want to change the final point where these blurs end up. So these blurs are now selected. All I can do is maybe just rotate them a little bit and push them back. Okay, and if you need to zoom out and maybe pull them down to make them longer, they will animate correctly just so make sure they don't get out into the scene there, just to reveal London in place where it needs to be. Everything seems okay on the right side, but if you feel like you want to animate those two, you know, just maybe you want to move them, kind of rotate them a little bit like the arrow, like the map is going, select them again, keep your playhead at the end, Shift and A, add animation to all of the 4 ones on the top right, select all the animations, pull them back like this, and then go back to the end because we don't want to change the beginning, pull them to the end, and then rotate all of them while they are selected and possibly push them back a bit. So you can see the focus kind of changing, the pseudo focus. It's not a real depth of field kind of thing, but look at all this. This is looking so great now. If I want to now animate the whole thing and see what I've achieved, let's go back and look at that. So now I've got all these things happening here. I've got the map, the arrow, the depth of field. Let's see what we have achieved. So that is fantastic. It looks great. It looks 3D. It looks everything you want. And if you want to be really fancy, I mean, you can add a motion blur to the map to just give it a little extra, but that depends on the speed of the animation. We can even try. Just make sure you save because you don't want Camtasia to crash on you. But let's choose from visual effects. Let's choose motion blur and add it to the track, the clip with the group with the map. So I've added that one. Let's give it a motion blur intensity maximum. Just go before the animation and give it a maximum too, because the blur can be animated, the motion blur. So let's see if that did anything. I don't think it did, but anyway, let's have a look. Maybe it did a bit. I don't know. I can't really see it because of all those blurs that I have on screen, like 4 blurs on the right, 4 on the left, all animating and moving and doing stuff at the same time. Camtasia is struggling to draw the whole canvas in real time. Plus, I may have switched this to 60 frames. Yes, I did. So that means it's going to be quite hard to draw. So what I want to do now is export this and see it in real time, export it to a video. So I'm going to go and export local file. I'm going to go through my settings. Make sure you export it with the 60 frames. If it's 60 frames, size, you know, HD, that's fine. Quality 75 is what I always use. Click next and then choose the file you save. And let's see what we have after the export. All right, so the file has been exported. Let me open it and see what it looks like. That's fantastic. It looks great. I have achieved my effect. I have animated the map and everything. So there you have it. You can create some nice animations if you plan ahead everything and you kind of think about what effects you want to use, but not just the effects, how to combine the various elements and how to do the mechanics to make it work. So I kind of think I kind of think this came out quite nice. And just if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I hope you have learned something from the power of Camtasia when you want to stretch it beyond its limits. And yeah, you don't need fancy software to create these little simple animations that, you know, they add a little great attraction effect to your videos if you need that kind of stuff. And thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any other ideas for tutorials, let me know in the comments. I am happy to do them or at least try to see if they can be done with Camtasia. And if or any other questions you have, feel free to ask them, or feel free to join my Facebook group, Camtasia Help for Beginners, where we can talk about stuff, ask questions, answer, and I will personally be talking in there in this group. So thank you again for your time. I will see you on the next one.